The Dallas Cowboys may have just thrown away their shot at a Super Bowl. And it all started with a muttered sentence during a routine practice, one that cracked the very foundation of America's team. What should have been a focused training camp turned into a media firestorm. Players turned against each other. Coaches lost control. And behind it all, a frustrated superstar, a defiant quarterback, and an aging owner making one mistake after another. Micah Parsons, Dallas's defensive juggernaut, stood on the sideline, exhausted and done playing Jerry Jones's games. On the other side, Dak Prescott, rallying a locker room that was already collapsing. Underpaid, unheard, and undeniably fed up, Parsons didn't just hold out from drills. He blew up the entire illusion of unity in Dallas. A confrontation in front of teammates. Explosive words exchanged. Trade rumors across the league. And now one very real possibility. The Cowboys dynasty may have finally reached its breaking point. Because this wasn't just a contract dispute. This was pride. This was ego. This was the moment Micah Parsons and Dak Prescott's partnership shattered, possibly forever. And what happens next will either define a championship run or mark the end of it all. Micah Parsons wasn't just a steal in the draft. He was a revelation. Picked 12th overall, a spot many now consider criminally low. Parsons exploded onto the field, shifting the balance of the Cowboys' defense the moment he stepped on it. From sideline to sideline linebacker to full-blown edge rusher, he dominated every snap, became a leader on and off the field, and quickly turned into the face of a franchise chasing relevance. And yet, when it came time to talk about his future, the Cowboys slammed the brakes like they had all the leverage. Parsons watched as other stars around the league, players with less production and less impact, got paid. Meanwhile, Dallas hesitated. Rumors swirled that owner Jerry Jones was holding out for one reason: control. Instead of contacting Micah's high-powered agent, David Mulugeta, the same agent who's negotiated some of the biggest contracts in the league, Jerry took the conversation straight to Micah himself. No paperwork, no guarantees, just words. Which might sound old school, but in today's NFL, that's a red flag. And it wasn't the first time the Cowboys did this. Ask Ezekiel Elliott, who got overpaid too late. Ask Dak Prescott, who had to play through injury before securing his deal. Ask CeeDee Lamb, who's now watching the clock tick on his own extension talks. Every time, the front office drags their feet until things boil over, and then they panic. Micah saw it coming and asked to get paid early last year. Dallas ignored it. Now, the market shifted. Nick Bosa reset the edge rusher price tag at $34 million per year. And instead of locking Micah in before that, Dallas waited, only to face a new number: $42 to $44 million per year. But this isn't just about money. Micah went from playing selflessly, changing positions, building the identity of this defense, only to feel like a pawn in Jerry's playbook. And after 2 seasons of watching the Cowboys mishandle their best players, Micah finally said what he had been holding back. He was done waiting. Training camp is supposed to be where legends form, where chemistry is built, doubts erased, and a team defines its identity. But for the Dallas Cowboys, the opening weeks of camp felt more like watching a house with a cracked foundation slowly collapse, and everyone saw it coming. Micah Parsons showed up, technically. He walked onto the field dressed to practice, helmet in hand, pads on, but something was off. He wasn't participating in full contact drills. He wasn't moving with the same intensity. His silence said more than any press conference ever could. ... Reporters started whispering. Teammates noticed, and Jerry Jones, he brushed it off with a smile and a classic Jerry line about competitors being competitors. But behind the scenes, things were boiling. Parsons had made his position clear. He wanted real negotiations, real numbers on paper, and above all, he wanted respect. But Jerry hadn't even picked up the phone to call his agent. Meanwhile, rumors started swirling like wildfire. A trade to the Green Bay Packers? Rashawn Gary and a mountain of draft picks in return? Insiders were leaking the possibility while the Cowboys denied everything. But Micah didn't deny it. He stayed on the sideline, watching, waiting. The locker room started to split. Some sided with Dak Prescott, saying Micah's contract shouldn't overshadow the team. Others defended Parsons, arguing he'd earned the right to get paid and wasn't being treated like the generational talent he is. The disconnect was growing every day. And the worst part? No one stepped in to fix it. Not Jerry, not coaches, not even front office executives. They let the pressure build, until finally, during what should have been a typical 7-on-7 drill, everything cracked. Because what was coming next wasn't just a disagreement. It was a confrontation that would shake the Cowboys to their core. It happened in seconds, but the fallout could last for years. The Cowboys were halfway through another intense training camp day. The sun was beating down. Coaches barked plays. Players hustled through reps. But while most were grinding, Micah Parsons stood off to the side, arms crossed, helmet dangling loosely at his side. He hadn't participated in full drills for days. Not because he couldn't, but because he wouldn't. And Dak Prescott had seen enough. During a 7-on-7 set, Dak hit CeeDee Lamb on a clean slant, jogged back to the huddle, and that's when he said it, quietly, just loud enough. "You can cash your checks later. Right now we need you out here." Micah didn't blink. He turned toward Dak, brow furrowed, and stepped forward. "What did you just say?" Dak didn't flinch. "You heard me. We're grinding out here. Nobody gives a damn about your agent. This team's trying to win a Super Bowl. So either help or get out of the way." The temperature on that field instantly dropped 20 degrees. Helmets froze mid-air. Coaches went silent. Every eye turned toward the two leaders now standing just feet apart. Micah leaned in. "You've been paid. You got yours. Me? I've been out here wrecking my body every week for this defense. While Jerry plays games and you, the so-called captain, throw shade at me instead of supporting your teammate?" Dak bit back, voice rising. "Respect isn't given because you pout on the sideline. You earn it by showing up, even when things aren't perfect. I carried this team when you were still in college, so don't talk to me about sacrifice." At that point, it wasn't a debate. It was personal. Micah's voice boomed across the field. "Oh, please, carried this team? What about the playoffs, Dak? What about when the defense bailed you out and you came up small? Don't talk to me about leadership when we've had to clean up your mess every time it actually counts." Gasps. Literal gasps. CeeDee Lamb's head dropped. Zach Martin whispered, "This is about to get ugly." And it nearly did. Because what happened next was a scene no one could have imagined. The practice didn't resume. Not really. Not in any meaningful way. Coaches stepped in, physically separating two of the biggest names in Dallas Cowboys history, Dak Prescott and Micah Parsons, before things turned explosive. But the damage wasn't physical. It was psychological. And every single player on that field felt it like a punch to the chest. There was no yelling, no fights, just silence. And that's when the whisper started. Veterans muttered under their breath, trading sharp looks and soft opinions. Some backed Dak, said he was right, said leadership means putting the team first, no matter what's happening behind the scenes. We can't win if the stars are walking through camp focused on negotiations instead of football, one vet reportedly told a positional coach. But others didn't agree, not even close. One younger player, off record, said what many fans were already tweeting. Easy for Dak to tell someone to forget money when he's been paid twice over. Micah's earned his bag, and Jerry's playing games again. Zach Martin, who'd gone through his own contract standoff the year before, kept quiet. CeeDee Lamb avoided the media altogether. Inside the locker room, there was no laughter, no music, no next play energy. Training camp chemistry? Gone. And it wasn't just about a fight anymore. It was a question mark hovering over the entire franchise. How do you build trust when your two most valuable leaders are on opposite sides of the battlefield? And worse, one of them might not be around much longer. Because while players were picking sides inside the locker room, outside, the front office was fielding calls. Real ones. Green Bay had entered the chat, ready to bring chaos to Dallas in a way the franchise wasn't prepared for. The headlines hit within hours. Sources: Packers eyeing blockbuster deal for Micah Parsons. Cowboys listening to trade calls, Rashawn Gary 3 draft picks in play. Micah ready to move on? At first, fans brushed it off as wild speculation. But insiders doubled down. This wasn't clickbait. This was real. Green Bay had made contact. They were offering one of their own stars, edge rusher Rashawn Gary, plus multiple high draft picks, including a potential first. It wasn't just a fair offer, it was tempting. And in most NFL war rooms, this would have been the start of serious talks. But in Dallas, it wasn't just about football. To move Micah wasn't just trading a player. It was admitting your franchise mishandled everything. The mishandling of early negotiations, the failure to reach out to his agent, the public clown show around who did or didn't deserve top dollar. On paper, it might have made sense. The Cowboys had 25 free agents heading into next season. Micah's future cap hit would squeeze the team dry. And with Dak, CeeDee, and others already draining the books, financial reality was starting to close in. But trading Micah Parsons felt wrong. This was the guy who transformed the defense, the guy who lined up anywhere, wrecked quarterbacks, and turned bad Sundays into winnable games. He was a one-man game changer, a walking highlight reel, the closest thing Dallas had to a championship X Factor. And now, the front office was actually considering sending him away? Inside the team facility, no one knew what to believe. Coaches were tight-lipped. Micah? Silent. And Jerry Jones? Well, Jerry did what Jerry always does. Smiled for the cameras while chaos built behind him. But what the public didn't know was that this deal came dangerously close to being finalized. And if it had gone through, the Cowboys' identity, already hanging by a thread, might have been gone for good. This was never just about contracts. Not really. Because if it were, a simple call to Micah Parsons' agent, David Mulligetta, could have wrapped this up quietly. But Jerry Jones doesn't do quiet. And he doesn't do agents. Instead, Jerry insisted on handling discussions personally, man to man, old school. The same way he's dealt with coaches, players, and front office drama for decades. But this time, that method backfired. Badly. Behind closed doors, sources revealed that Jerry had a face-to-face conversation with Micah earlier in the offseason. He believed they'd come to a verbal understanding. He even told media outlets that the deal was in motion. The problem? Nothing was ever formalized. No binding numbers, no papers, and critically, no involvement from Micah's representation. NFL contracts don't get done with handshakes anymore. You don't close a $150 million extension with a smile and vague promises, especially not with an agent like Mulligetta, the same guy Forbes ranked as one of the most powerful in sports. But Jerry boxed him out, repeatedly. And for Micah, that wasn't just disrespect. That was personal. A move that undermined his value, ignored his professionalism, and insulted the process entirely. This wasn't the first time Jerry played this game. Ask Des Bryant. Ask DeMarco Murray. Even Jimmy Johnson didn't survive the Jerry Jones ego test. But Micah thought he was different. He thought he'd earned the right to be treated like a franchise cornerstone. because he'd played like one, week after week, carrying a defense that kept Dallas alive while the offense sputtered in big moments. So when Jerry tried to do it his way again, cutting the agent out and tossing around friendly promises, Micah shut down. He showed up to camp, but he wasn't practicing. He wasn't smiling, and he wasn't budging. Because in his eyes, he wasn't just negotiating for money. He was demanding something Jerry Jones rarely gives: respect. By the time the dust settled, it wasn't just about a sideline argument or a media leak. This was the beginning of a full-blown unraveling of the Dallas Cowboys. The day after the confrontation, insider Jordan Schultz dropped the bombshell tweet. This isn't just a heated exchange. This is the unraveling of the Cowboys' locker room. Dak and Micah are supposed to be the foundation, and right now, that foundation is broken. Inside the Cowboys facility, things felt off. Conversations were clipped. Team meetings were quiet. Players who once joked and laughed drifted into silence. Coaches did damage control, pretending it was all just in-the-moment passion. But no one believed that anymore. And then came the real blow. Micah Parsons' trade request went public. Suddenly, the whispers had teeth. The Packers deal? Still on the table. 3 picks, Rashawn Gary, and a new chapter waiting. And with Micah's camp making it clear he wasn't going to wait around for respect, the pressure inside Dallas became suffocating. Dak Prescott tried to keep it together. He stayed after practice, threw extra reps, forced smiles, but everyone could tell he was reeling. Because losing Micah wouldn't just hurt the defense. It would destroy the culture Dak had spent nearly a decade building. And Jerry? He tried to spin the moment like always. "These boys are competitors," he said with a smirk. "Sometimes tempers flare, but we're gonna work this out." But behind that smile was a storm. Because for the first time in a long time, Jerry Jones wasn't just battling salary caps or rival GMs. He was fighting a superstar with leverage, a player willing to risk everything for dignity, value, and principle. And between that player and his war-tested quarterback, he now had a fractured locker room, a broken offseason, and the future of the franchise hanging by a thread. This wasn't just tension anymore. This was a ticking time bomb. The Dallas Cowboys are standing at the edge of a cliff. What happens next doesn't just affect Micah Parsons and Dak Prescott. It might define the next decade of the franchise. Everything the Cowboys could be is hanging in the balance. The Super Bowl window? Still open. Barely. But make the wrong move here, and it slams shut. Possibly for good. Dallas has 2 paths laid out in front of them. Path 1? Fix it. Pay Micah. Rebuild the trust. Pick up the phone and bring his agent, David Mulligetta, back to the table with a serious, structured deal. No pride, no power plays. Just business. Show the locker room that the best players get treated like they matter. Let Dak and Micah sit down in private, not as enemies, but as leaders. Because neither of them is the problem. But if this continues, both of them could become casualties of Jerry Jones' refusal to evolve. If the Cowboys swallow their egos, this team could still rally. The defense is elite. CeeDee Lamb is a rising superstar, and Dak, for all the criticism, has kept this team competitive through some of the roughest stretches in recent history. With a united locker room, they could still make a run, and everyone watching knows it. But then there's path 2. Let it burn. Let the resentment build. Let Micah walk. Maybe you trade him. Maybe you don't. Maybe he shows up on game day, body on the line, but heart already somewhere else. Let your locker room feel like the business always comes before the brotherhood. Let young stars wonder if they'll be treated the same way. Let Dak carry a team that no longer believes. Because if Dallas stays silent, if they downplay this moment as just another camp scuffle, they won't just lose Micah Parsons. They'll lose the locker room, the identity, and the hope that this version of the Cowboys ever had in the first place. This wasn't just a fight in practice. This was a symbol. The moment everything the Cowboys tried to build came dangerously close to collapse. A superstar fed up. A quarterback exhausted. And ownership out of touch. And now the entire NFL is watching. They're not watching for schemes, depth charts, or preseason hype. They're watching for signs. Signs that this team isn't what it used to be. Signs that the Cowboys, yet again, are letting ego destroy opportunity. If Micah Parsons walks, or worse gets traded, this won't be remembered as just another holdout. It'll be remembered as the moment the Cowboys broke themselves from the inside out. It'll be one more name added to the list of elite talent they fumbled. To Marcus Ware, Dez Bryant, Amari Cooper, and now, possibly their best defensive player in a generation. And for Dak Prescott, this is his final chance to lead through chaos. Because no matter how this ends, his leadership will be questioned, his silence dissected, and his future judged by how he navigates this storm. As for Jerry Jones, the clock is ticking. The Cowboys can still make this right. They can still lock in their cornerstone. But if they don't, if pride wins over progress, if control is more important than chemistry, then this fight, this stare down in the scorching sun of training camp won't just be a side story. It'll be the turning point. And whether you're a fan or a rival, you already know. The next time Micah Parsons and Dak Prescott step onto a field together, beside each other, or across from each other, the entire league will be watching. Because only one thing is certain now. This story isn't over. In fact, it's just beginning.